Good evening. This is the call to order of the regular Board of Aldermen meeting located at held at the Salado Municipal Building located at 301 North Stagecoach Road in Salado, Texas. The date is November 7th, 2024, and the time is 6:30 p.m. Ms. Bean, please call the roll. Thank you, ma'am. As we begin this Board of Aldermen meeting, let's take a moment to reflect on our shared commitment to serve the diverse community of the Village of Salado. We invite all present, regardless of faith, belief, or philosophy, to join us in a spirit of unity, respect, and compassion. May our deliberations be guided by wisdom, our decisions rooted in fairness, and our actions driven by the common good. Whether you find inspiration in a higher power, the bonds of humanity, or the wonders of nature, let us work together to build a culture where every voice is heard and every individual is valued. Let's take a moment, please. Thank you. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the salute to the Texas flag. Okay, item one, the Board of Aldermen public comments. The Board of Aldermen welcomes comments from citizens on issues and items of concern not on the agenda. Those wishing to speak must sign in before the meeting begins and observe a 5-minute time limit when addressing the board. Speakers have one opportunity to speak during this time period. Speakers desiring to speak on an agenda item will be allowed to speak when the agenda item is called. Inquiries about matters not listed on the agenda will either be directed to staff or placed on a future agenda for Alderman consideration. First up, Mr. Jim Lassiter.
Jim Lassiter, 230 North Main, Salado, Texas. Appreciate y'all being here tonight. Know you don't get paid for your service, but I appreciate it nonetheless, whether I agree with it or not. But thank you for at least doing it. So let me start. I drafted a letter which I intend to give to Debbie at the end of this, but I don't want to read from it consistently. So let me just start off by saying, on my behalf as chairman of the Planning Commission, we are extremely disappointed with the action that the aldermen took at the last meeting. We feel like our efforts of 2 years with the task force, with the Planning Commission, with the citizens that talked to, we tried to do all that. And our interest isn't to follow any specific organization other than the planning and zoning, which we promised to do. And we promised to do that on behalf of the whole community, not a portion of it, not whether we liked or disliked something, but to consider all aspects of it. And I think we've done that. And I think we've consistently done that. And that's what we tried to do in that process. And to go through all that and then a regime change, a city manager, city administrator change, we waited, we got pretty close to the finish line on the overlay district. We really did. We had a few things missing, which Manny pointed out in April or May of this past year, that one of the things we were missing was a map and a full definition of what our intent was in terms of the boundaries of the West Village overlay. So we did that. We had set to revisit that and work on that issue. There was discussions about whether we extend it all the way up and down I-35 or not, and we basically, one of the members suggested that, another one we talked about it. We didn't come to a conclusion on that. We really never finished it as far as that goes, nor did we ever present it, nor did we ask for it to be presented, in my recollection, to the Board of Aldermen. We were in a holding position because of the enormous change in terms of the city administration staff, and trying to extend the courtesy to our new village administrator to work on all the other things that were really more important at that point in time than this. Then we had a mayoral change along with 2 new aldermen, which also created some time lapses so they could get their feet on the ground and not have to make decisions on something as quickly as possible. So then when we finally got to it and asked where we stood on it, we wanted to move forward on it. We thought we were going to do that, and we're headed towards meetings on that. And then we see it on the agenda without any real communication from anybody. Yes, Bert, you came to 2 meetings, as I recall, at the Planning and Zoning Commission, made a few statements just as a speaker, not in a position for us to talk about it long term or in depth at all, but you just made your comments known, and that was it. That was fine. I appreciate you doing that, but that was maybe half of the equation. It would have been really nice if we would have had an opportunity to talk to you about it. I asked for that after that meeting with you. You said we'd get together. Never heard from you. I finally sent a letter. I came up here to the office and asked for a meeting with you or to please call me. You never called me. Next thing you did, you went to the town hall meeting to implode the prior administration, and you told me in the hallway, yes, Jim, I know I need to see you, know we need to talk, but you never have, and you never did. Your sincerity with respect to representing all people, I sincerely question. I really do. I don't know what I have personally done to you to make you have the position of what you want to do or not do. But I will tell you this, there's a lot of people, a lot of time that was put effort into this. And for all of y'all to just say, you were out of the bounds of what your responsibilities were at the Planning Commission, which we did, I did, personally talked to a couple of attorneys. He said, absolutely, we were in line with that, and we were able to do it. And I'm out of time, but I'll be back for the next meeting to talk about it some more. But in closing, I would just say, really do think if you're interested in everybody's concern, you would at least given us the time of day, a public hearing or something, so that we could have expressed in detail what we were trying to do. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Jim Boynton.
I'm Jim Boynton, 3565 FM 2843 in Salado. I will tell y'all this. I support what y'all do, and I'm going to tell you why. Starting in 2009, I bought some property here. Every one of their boards, the Historical Society decided I needed to go through them because the plot I was developing was the first surveyed piece of property in the county. That had nothing to do with us building houses. The planning and zoning was just a big show of, we're going to make you jump through this hoop, and this hoop, and this hoop, and this hoop. That went on for months. We redrew plans. We did everything we could until I had enough, and I went and got my attorney and went into the mayor's office at the bank and told him, if y'all want to check me, you look. Because of that, I got a building permit in June, and planning and zoning didn't get back to me till October. Look it up. It's all on city records. I had people telling me in the grocery store, I don't even know. They know me, I don't know them. I didn't live here at the time. We're gonna hold you up till you go broke. That has been the history of what people have done in this city with these boards. Maybe not the people on the board today, but the boards have done that. I heard Darlene say there was somebody on the Planning and Zoning Committee showed up at a meeting, said, I don't want my business on the west side overlay. Boom, off of it. That may be legal, but is it ethical? And that's what I want to know about all this. I hear all these people stand up here and read these, it's not legal to do this. What is ethical? Is it ethical to play hide and seek with the sewer? Is it ethical to have, I had a guy drive on the septic system on one of those houses back then who lived across the street, and somebody on the P&Z apparently lived across the street from him, and he's driving on a brand new septic system I just put in, looking out the window, saying, well, my neighbor's on the P&Z, and he said, they're going to stop you. I've got a septic in. They drugged the fire chief back then, Chief Young up there, to say there's no fire plugs within 500 feet. That's not true. They said we can't turn a fire truck down there. At the time I bought that, there were 11 trailer houses over there. 3 had speed labs in them. I'm cleaning it up. I'm doing my part because that's what I was promised from folks on the P&Z. And then when I go to try to get a building permit, I can't get one. They held me up for nothing more than to try to cost us money. And it's been a history of it all the way through. These last 3 houses, the same thing. The same exact same thing. It's not, it may be legal. What they're doing may be legal. I don't think it's ethical. And the way they addressed everybody about trying to straighten something up, y'all aren't trying to straighten up something that was in good shape. Y'all had a train wreck here and you're trying to get the train back on the track. And for people to continue showing up with a bunch, I'm promising you, and I'll make this statement again, about the only people who really care about that West Side overlay are in this room tonight. The rest of the citizens probably don't care. They don't even understand it, and they don't understand why people would hold somebody up that's trying to build houses for the houses that I built in this town. One of my son-in-laws has a doctorate. He's a principal in Florence. His wife is a teacher, my daughter. My son's a cop. My daughter-in-law is the children's minister at First Baptist. My other daughter is assistant superintendent. These aren't drug dealers I'm dragging to town. And they ought to be ashamed. And they brag about it. These committees have been nothing but stuff to whip people with. I redrew those plans the first time 3 times. Then I get over and look and I make an open records request. I'll give it to anybody that wants it. It's in y'all's own records. They were drawing plans and they were showing engineered slabs drawn on paper by themselves. They would flunk an inspection and sooner or later somebody would call up and all of a sudden Veritas was passing. This corruption that's gone on with that needs to stop. Let's clear these boards and start again.
Charles Simmons.
Charles Simmons, 317 Salado Creek Place, Salado, Texas. Let's talk about your decision on the Planning and Zoning Commission's West Side Overlay draft on October 3rd. What is the truth about the decision and the process of making that decision? Is truth what you government officials on the Board of Aldermen tell us, or is it something completely different? Let's look at the West Side Overlay draft by the Planning and Zoning Commission, several state laws, and village ordinances, and see whether you've been telling us the truth. You tell us you can call a meeting and nix the unfinished West Side Overlay that has not yet been proposed by the Planning and Zoning Commission. However, the Planning and Zoning Commission is established by state law, Government Code, various Chapter 211, and the Board of Aldermen must abide by Texas law concerning the Planning and Zoning Commission. See 211.007, which states, after the Planning and Zoning Commission submits a final report to the governing body, you, a governing body may not hold a public hearing until it receives a final report from the Zoning Commission. The governing body may not take action on the matter until it receives the final report of the Zoning Commission. So Texas law requires the Planning and Zoning Commission to make a finding and present finished proposals to the Board of Aldermen. Texas law requires the Board of Aldermen to hold a public hearing on planning and zoning proposals. And Texas law states that the Board of Aldermen must hold a public hearing on planning and zoning proposals before the Board of Aldermen adopts or denies those planning and zoning proposals. You have violated Texas law because the Planning and Zoning Commission made no proposal and no final report. The Board of Aldermen held no public hearing. The Board of Aldermen cannot hold a meeting or make decisions on the West Side overlay until the Planning and Zoning Commission makes a final report and the Board of Aldermen holds a public hearing. That is true, and that's the opposite of what you've been telling. But further, your own village ordinance 2013.08, section 2.4G1, requires the Board of Aldermen to set and hold a public hearing on every proposal recommendation by the Planning and Zoning Commission. And then the Board of Aldermen may approve or disapprove the proposal. The Board of Aldermen again made no proposal and the Board of Aldermen held no public hearing. And you cannot approve or deny the West Side overlay as you've done. This is not what you're telling us, and it's not truth what you're telling us. So then you tell us that the Planning and Zoning Commission said the West Side overlay was final and done. But two Planning and Zoning Commissioners had the guts to stand up in public comment and tell you that's not true. Further, the minutes of the Planning and Zoning meeting, if they exist, show the West Side overlay was tabled at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting prior to that. Does that sound like done? And look at the West Side overlay draft that was in your agenda. It's interlineated completely. It doesn't look final at all. And does the West Side overlay draft have boundaries in it? No, because it's not finished. And even the Planning and Zoning Commission passed, and even if the Planning and Zoning Commission passed it, the West Side overlay is still required by Texas law to have a public hearing, which you have not had. So the board took up an unfinished draft of the West Side overlay in violation of state law and unlawfully denied that draft without public hearing required by state law. And yet you tell us otherwise. So let me stop here, and I'll go through statutes and other things at a later time, and tell you what we learned from all this. So we see that the truth is not what you're telling us. Truth is not what you use to cover up your rash and illegal acts. Truth is not what the Board of Aldermen used to cover a hidden bias against the West Side overlay. And truth is not what the Board of Aldermen uses to cover its disregard and disrespect to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Truth is not what the Board of Aldermen uses to disregard the Planning and Zoning Commission and remove its members. Truth is not what the Board of Aldermen uses to disregard citizens in favor of property flippers who only want to sell Salado down the river. We see that each of your noses are getting longer, and I think you should hang your heads in shame. The Board of Aldermen has rashly and illegally ambushed the West Side overlay and the Planning and Zoning Commission without humility, with tyranny, and in a know-it-all manner. This smells like the last Muriel administration. And unless you reverse your Custer decisions, Salado will be overcome like Jericho. That is all for now.
Ms. Bev Turnbow.
Good evening. I'm Bev Turnbow, 349 College Hill Drive, Salado, Texas. Sorry, I'm a little hoarse. I too am here to talk about the West Side Overlay, which we'll call the WSO. The BOA's interpretation of state law vis-a-vis the proposed WSO has resulted in a decision that is arbitrary, uninformed, and short-sighted. You may not know, but the West Side Overlay is a zoning district in our 2013 zoning ordinance. The mayor stated on October 17th that the board did not vote on the proposed ordinance, but on the district. You do not have the authority to arbitrarily eliminate a district that is authorized by Texas Code 211-005, and in our zoning ordinance, you have subverted the requirements in 211-007, as Charles has mentioned, and the zoning ordinance by preemptively making a decision on the WSO. You know, Section 211 grants municipalities very broad authority to zone property through a zoning ordinance and a zoning map. That's our authority, is that zoning ordinance and the zoning map. That's our legislative authority. Municipalities are authorized to also develop additional overlay restrictions, especially in historic areas or gateway areas. Local government officials are afforded very broad discretion in zoning matters, as zoning is considered a legislative function. During the October 17th BOA meeting, Mr. De La Rosa misinterpreted Section 211.0165. The governing body of a municipality may, in fact, take a property's owner's property in the historic area if the zoning commission and 3/4 of the BOA votes to incorporate that property in the historic district. We do not have to have a historic commission. Manny, you can look at Section 211.01652B. 211.005 states that zoning requirements can vary from district to district. So in the local retail district, or I'm sorry, in the West Side Overlay district, it can look very different from the historic district. So, and the interesting thing is that the state statute says that the character of each district and its particular suitability for particular uses should be considered. Now, I think this is an interesting comment, given I know Darlene has mentioned the character, and what is it? Well, even our state legislators think it's important enough to mention it, that municipalities should always consider character in making zoning decisions. It's ludicrous for the BOA to think that parking, signage, and native grasses are not directly related to zoning matters, or can't be required because they're not specifically mentioned in 211.003. If anyone needs training on zoning laws, it's the BOA and not the P&Z. Our zoning ordinance already regulates off-street parking and landscaping. We have a signage ordinance in 2018-10, and monument signs can be required in any kind of overlay, as it is in our historic district. And I think what's more amazing is that it's incredulous that y'all would even mention not requiring native grasses when we're suffering from a drought, from a water shortage here in Salado. I mean, that only makes common sense that we would start requiring native plants and grasses in new development. The proposed WSO complies with the 2019 comprehensive plan, which you just approved, especially in Part A corridor studies and Principle 6 and Action Step 6.1. You can look throughout there and you will see very reflected in the current comprehensive plan many of the things that are in the proposed WSO. Finally, I'd say that in reading the paper comments, the mayor claims that the, quote, BOA decisions receive thorough consideration with an ethical planning perspective. To me, there's nothing ethical about a process that disregards and disrespects the P&Z and all the work that's done, or when you eliminate the advisory boards. Gentlemen, your definition of ethical planning and thorough consideration differ greatly from mine. Thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Mr. Michaels, do you want to talk now, or do you want to wait until? Okay. Any more public comments? Next item on the agenda is item 2, certificate of recognition. I'm going to hold off on that until he's not here yet. So I'm just going to wait. We'll move on to item 3, the consent agenda. A, approval of minutes of October 17, 2024 regular Board of Aldermen meeting. B, approval of cancellation of the December 5th, 2024 regular Board of Aldermen meeting. C, acceptance of Tourism Department monthly report. D, acceptance of Police Department monthly report. E, approval of Williams Road closure from FM 2484 to Soaring Eagle Way during the 2024 Thanksgiving school break for roadway repairs. F, approval of the route for the Scottish Gathering and Highlands Game Parade. G, approval of Main Street closure for the Salado Christmas Parade on Thursday, December 5th, 2024. H, acknowledge receipt of petition for release from the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the Village of Salado from Vail Building Group, LLC. Authorized agent being Edwin H. Vail, Jr. If the board will allow, I would like to remove item D, the Police Department monthly report, from the consent agenda, and we can discuss that here in a minute on its own. And, Alderman Graham, do you have any questions about that?
No.
Any issues with that? We need a motion for that, Annie?
Yes.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion for that.
Make a motion that we approve the consent agenda less item D and leave that for discussion. Second.
Motion made by Alderman Graham to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item D to be discussed here in a few minutes, and seconded by Alderman Hurst. Any further discussion? Question called by Alderman McDonald. All in favor of approval of consent agenda as written, minus
Mayor,
D?
Any public comments?
Yeah, that's right, sorry. Any public comments on the consent agenda? No? Okay. All in favor of approving the consent agenda minus item D, say yes, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Any abstentions? Just being that passes 4-0. Okay, item 4, discuss and consider possible action regarding any item removed from the consent agenda. Item D was acceptance of the Police Department monthly report. Chief Field, you mind coming up? There's been some conversations on social media. I've gotten some phone calls about this and some messages about the situation on, I believe it was October 26th. October 27th. You want to speak to that, Chief, as much as you can?
I will speak as much as I can. The case has not been adjudicated, so there's a whole lot that I can't go into. However, on October the 27th, 2024, just after midnight, Salado Police Department officers were dispatched. This wasn't something they rolled up on and decided to take upon themselves. They were dispatched to the 1400 block of Mill Creek Drive in reference to a call about minors having a house party. The caller observed what appeared to be minors carrying alcohol from vehicles into the residence, and further stated they smelled what they believed to be the odor of marijuana coming from the residence. Officers Gatewood and Manning arrived on scene and attempted to make contact with the occupants of the residence. Officers saw two females look out the front glass area and immediately run towards the back portion of the residence. After running to the back portion of the residence, officers heard commotion inside the residence. They walked to the backyard area and observed numerous individuals running and jumping fences. They gave several commands: stop police, Salado Police Department, stop running. And those commands were ignored. At that point, officers gave foot chase and was able to apprehend 2 individuals. One of the individuals was identified as a 19-year-old female. The second individual was identified as a 17-year-old female. 19-year-old female is a college student. 17-year-old female is a Belton Independent School District student, BISD. 19-year-old admitted to consuming alcohol while inside the residence. Both subjects were placed under arrest for evading arrest or detention. The second portion of that is actually still under investigation. The providing alcohol to minors, that portion of it is still under investigation. I'll tell you why it's still under investigation. While the officers were on scene, they asked for consent to enter the residence to look for evidence of the smoking of marijuana and or evidence of alcoholic beverages, minors consuming alcoholic beverages. The homeowner denied entry, 100% their right, have no problem with that in the world. That is their right as a property owner to deny entry. So we're still investigating whether or not there was alcohol involved inside the residence. We're still investigating whether or not marijuana was smoked inside the residence and who furnished that alcohol. I can tell you that there were some concerns about evading arrest or detention. Texas Penal Code 38.04, evading arrest or detention. A person commits an offense if he intentionally flees from a person he knows is a peace officer or federal special investigator attempting to lawfully arrest or detain him. And that's what the officers were trying to do. They had reasonable suspicion to believe there was underage drinking and possible marijuana smoking going on in property, and they were attempting to detain individuals who then took off running. That's about all I can really say.
So this was in response to a call that was made to Bell County Communications.
Correct. This call came from the Bell County Communications Center. They were dispatched.
They didn't just pick a house at random.
They didn't just pick a house. This wasn't a 13-year-old birthday party at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
And these were not minors that were arrested. These were adults.
The two that were arrested were considered adults in the state.
Okay. All right. Appreciate it, Chief. Alderman Graham, do you have any questions?
No.
Alderman Hurst.
No question.
Alderman McDonald.
No, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Bell. I have one more question for you. So, running from the police is never a good idea anyway.
No, sir, it's not.
Even if you haven't done anything wrong up to that point, as soon as you take that first step to run away, you now committed a crime.
Correct.
So it's not on call. It's not uncommon to be arrested strictly on evasion.
No, sir, I've done it several times.
Okay. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Mayor, since you moved that item to item 4, we moved it from the consent, any public comments?
Any public comments on that item? No? Okay. We need to approve that. So I'll entertain a motion to approve, or a motion for to accept item 5, or I guess now 4D.
I'll make a motion we accept 4D, the police report.
Motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Bell to accept as presented.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman McDonald. Any further discussion? Question called by Alderman Hurst. All in favor of approval of item 4D as written, say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Any abstentions? This being that passes 4-0. Item 5, public hearing. Hold a public hearing on the creation of the Mustang Springs Public Improvement District in accordance with Chapter 372 of the Texas Local Government Code. This public hearing was opened on October 3rd, 2024, and the matter was in recess, and it will continue until November 7th, 2024. So at this time, 7:05, we will reconvene this public hearing about the Public Improvement District. Mr. Del Rosa, do you have anything?
Yeah, Mayor and Alderman, let me kind of bring you up to speed where we're at. I've had a conversation with our good bond counsel. So he says that he's about 90% complete with the negotiations on this creation and also getting the information regarding water services to whichever phase of development they want to proceed with. And any other negotiations pertaining to just the pit itself. So that will likely take place in 2 weeks, and that was part of the agreement when I discussed this with Mr. James Kirby after our last meeting. Basically, we've left this public hearing was convened. It went into recess. We've reconvened it. My recommendation again this evening, based on our bond counsel's suggestion, is that that it continue recess until the next meeting. The next meeting will be in 2 weeks from today. Should we not complete the negotiations to be able to provide them to you based on the discussions that were held, then it will be delayed until the second meeting of December, which is since December 5th meeting has been canceled. So we will certainly continue to hear any public comments during this open hearing on this matter, but there is not going to be any action on this matter this evening.
Thank you, sir. All right, anyone wishing? I got Mr. Larry Michaels.
Larry Michaels, 1346 Long Meadow, Salado, Texas. I would hope as part of these negotiations that there is considerable consideration given to the fact that, first off, they don't have water yet. Again, we're getting the cart before the horse. And the possibility of finding water to feed the entire project by time this comes up to vote, I think, is slim and none. And it's, I think, prudent upon the village to make sure that they provide either a bifurcated or trifurcated bond solicitation based on the percentage of water that they have committed to and approved for the development. My fear is if you solicit the entire bond amount and they only find water for half of it, what happens to the rest of the project and the people? And I would hope that's part of your negotiation. Because you may not be at financial risk, but I think you're at a much greater risk of reputation and the confidence in this body. And I don't think somebody would want to screw up over something like that, given the other financial problems it's had in the recent past, especially with this project. Again, you're getting the cart before the horse, and I think you're putting you at undue risk that you shouldn't be taking. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Okay. It is 7:08, and we will place this matter back into recess, and we will continue this just in 2 weeks. Yeah. So on to item 6. No, I'm sorry. We're going to move some things around here a little bit. Item 2, certificate of recognition to Michael Alexanderson. Jacob, you mind playing that real quick?
How lucky can one guy be? I kissed her and she kissed me. Like before, no one said, ain't that a kick in the head?
Michael Alexanderson is his name, of Salado. He wowed the coaches, getting a 2-chair turn. He had his rendition, as you just heard, of Dean Martin's Ain't That a Kick in the Head. He'll be under the wing of the one and only Snoop Dogg. We love that for him.
That song may change slightly under Snoop, but no, he'll do a different one every week.
The thing that excites me about working with Snoop the most is probably the fact that we have 2 rather completely different ballparks when it comes to performances and songs of choice. But I think with us mixing our genres and styles of what we know and finding something in the middle could actually blossom into something very pretty.
All right.
Michael, come on up. All right, Michael Anderson. The Village of Salado, Texas proudly recognizes your outstanding achievement as a contestant in the hit television series The Voice. Your remarkable performance of Dean Martin's Ain't That a Kick in the Head showcased your exceptional talent and passion for music. As a proud resident of Salado, you have served as an exemplary ambassador for our community, inspiring us all with your determination and unwavering commitment to your craft. Your success in The Voice is a testament to the support and encouragement of the people of Salado, and we are honored to have you represent Salado on the world stage. The Village of Salado extends its heartfelt congratulations and appreciation for your exceptional accomplishments. Your journey on The Voice has brought great pride to our community, and we eagerly await your continued success in your current and future endeavors. Signed, Bert Henry, Mayor, November 7, 2024. For those that didn't hear, Michael's run on that series, you said it ended Monday, but he's still continuing to perform in and around Salado just about probably every weekend. I see him, he's playing somewhere. And I have no doubt that you will continue with that. And man, I think that you continue to hone your craft, and I think you're gonna go as far as you want to go with this. So congratulations, and we appreciate you being here. All right, item 6, discussion and possible action A. Discussion and possible action on request from Mr. Marshall Lee Pointer with Salado Scooter Rentals LLC on scooter rental extension to the 1-year probationary period, approved by the Salado Board of Aldermen on November 16, 2023, listed as agenda item 5E. All right, Mr. Del Rosa, do you have anything?
No, sir. No.
Okay. All right, Mr. Pointer, you want to tell us what's happening?
My name is Marshall Lee Pointer. This is Melanie Ringstaff. We reside at 1712 Chisholm Trail here in Salado. And so first I want to thank you, Mayor Henry and Mayor Pro Tem Bell and the Board of Aldermen for having us out on this rainy Thursday to chat about what's happened with Salado Scooter Rentals. As you mentioned, we started with our first year. It got off to a little bit of a slow start, but we started to really rent our electric scooters in February of 2024. Took us a while to get up to speed, get everything configured properly, and get it out and get it ready for business. We also launched an e-bike rental business on June of 2024. The first year through October, we had 532 e-scooters rent. Then we also had 63 e-bikes be rented. We experienced some really positive feedback overall. Every customer gets an opportunity to rate us. We received 92% 4 to 5 star ratings for the electric scooters. E-bikes, we received 96% 4 to 5 star ratings, which are very favorable. I put in the document that I submitted some of the quotes about what people experienced and how they enjoyed it. We felt like we provided the best service we could for the community and for the customers. We were every day vigilant about the condition of the bikes and the scooters to make sure that they were returned appropriately, they were in good working order, and that they were appropriate for future rentals. So in regards to the infrastructure, there's a sign near all of the equipment that tells people rules of the road. That's also in the document that I presented. Basically, we're trying to encourage people to follow all of the rules and the laws of the roadways and pick up and drop off in our designated locations, which we have geo-fenced so that we ensure that they aren't just left around town. Further, we are in compliance with the right-of-ways. There was a misunderstanding on my part for a period of time where I wasn't certain of the right-of-ways, but we have sought clarity on that, and today we are definitely in compliance of the right-of-ways. So we are on private property. We have 2 rental locations today. One is at the Stagecoach Inn. David Hayes, one of the owners, welcomes the opportunity for us to provide that service because it's a fun thing for people that visit our community, go tour around, see our community. It's an opportunity for them to have a service that they didn't previously have. Our second location today is on Main Street on David Hayes' private lot across from the pizza place, if you know where that is, near Blacksmith Road. So David, in quote, said to me that the scooters and e-bikes are just a really nice amenity for our guests that come to visit us. In terms of safety, we make sure that the rental agreement stipulates you have to be 16 years or older. You have to be limited to 15 miles an hour or less in terms of speed. We've collaborated with local authorities, and I have not heard, to my knowledge, of any sort of negative report on terms of abuse or safety. I would welcome Chief maybe to talk about that. If he has heard of something, then I am unaware of it. In addition, we've created a little bit of job opportunities here in town. We hope to do more of that in the future. I hired somebody to help me with some advertising and marketing, especially in our Facebook channel. I would like to do more of that to drive our economy a little bit. In terms of public engagement, we did promote our service through the Village Voice. We did do some social media, Google, and of course physical signage. Fleet management, I mentioned it earlier. Melanie and I are on our toes every day, making sure that everything's where it should be, everything's in good working order. I did obtain liability insurance for $2 million, for instance. I provided that in the documentation as well, the proof of certificate of liability insurance. So next steps, I would like to pursue more partnerships in the village, partnering with perhaps more local hotels and inns. Any business that really feels like we can provide a service that adds value to them to help drive customers to engage with their business. We're also looking at maybe doing some historical tours. That would be kind of a good thing so that people can see firsthand what we have to offer here in the Village of Salado. We also want to participate in the Village Parade if that's at all acceptable and possible. That's kind of a stretch goal, but something that we would enjoy doing. I do pay taxes. We have, since August, I know it's not a big number, but yeah, $148.12. But we will continue to do so. Yeah, it's just slow growing business. It isn't, I'm not quitting my day job.
We're not retiring.
But I feel, in summary, that the initial pilot went well, and so I come to you asking for an extension of 2 years. Questions for us, please?
Alderman Graham.
Manny, this, I think maybe is a question for you, and I know this took place before your time, and I understand why we had the 1 year probation period initially to kind of test the waters and stuff. Is there something that's keeping us from just saying go and do and not tagging putting a probationary tag onto it?
That's the question.
Yeah,
Can I tag in a little bit?
I think you're gonna go that way too, yeah.
Why does he have to come to us at all?
Yeah.
Because the golf course doesn't come to us to ask to rent golf carts and drive across the road or drive them on the streets. I mean, why are they having to come to, this question came up, I know when
I remember you
we talked about this the last time. I mean, we did the probationary, just kind of, let's get them on their way, let's get them going. But at the end of the day, I don't know why they're here. I mean,
well, yeah,
they ought to be able to run their business. They know what they're doing. Why are they here? Because
he doesn't mean that rudely.
No, we know.
No, I mean that is.
He said that last year too.
Mr. Pointer was, I mean, he's running a great business, and I mean, other businesses don't come in here and ask to run their businesses in the village.
Well, I've not gone to read your golf cart ordinance, but you did pass an ordinance regulating golf carts. This has the same types of applications. Bicycles are already regulated by state law. I did a search about e-scooters. I think I must have mentioned this to Mr. Pointer. And e-scooters are regulated throughout the country because the state doesn't. You do. So part of it is, and I already drafted a vehicle to hire ordinance because I wanted to see exactly what it looked like and I wanted to have it. So I anticipated that I was going to be asked questions by you. People have a right to do a lot of things as long as they don't detract the enjoyment of others utilizing. For example, riders must always yield to pedestrians. Riders must use bike lanes when available. In the absence of bike lanes, riders may ride on streets which have a speed limit of 35 miles per hour. Riding on sidewalks is prohibited. The person riding or in control must be at least 16 years of age. What I'm trying to say is you can regulate e-scooters, e-bikes, and also GPS electronic bikes. Governing bodies pass ordinances when people don't behave. You may have that today. I don't know what you're going to have tomorrow. I'm not recommending one thing or another, and you asked me earlier, Mayor, I had any questions. So if I get posed a question, I'm going to say what other cities are doing across the nation. You have the city of Austin just passed in April of this year a helmet requirement. Helmets are not required, but they can be. So the first time you get a 13-year-old that has a head injury because he didn't yield to a vehicle or people and bump on the street, then we're going to get this kind of request. You get to decide how much regulation you want, and are the citizenry or the visitors or the children, are they doing what they're supposed to and not hurting others or hurting themselves? That's the best answer I can give you at this point.
So there's a number of ways we could go with this: an extension of the probationary, or just
Or
say,
Mayor Pro Tem has indicated, it's not a problem today.
say you're cleared hot, and then in stride also develop a ordinance to basically describe what you're doing.
You know, and Mr. Pointer, when it came to my attention a few months ago, and it didn't come from any of you, it came from citizens, the bicycles or the scooters are laying across the sidewalk, specifically more around the Stagecoach Inn area. And when I started looking at it, I actually had to go find out exactly how we got this. Why is it on a public right-of-way? So the utilization of public right-of-way for personal gain is a no-no, right? So especially if you're not collecting franchise fees like utility companies providers that utilize right-of-way utility lines. So, as long as they're on private property, parking lots, other places of business, you can. It's when you get a larger population and you get different, a change of demographics, or maybe people are more unruly, like in some areas, then you may want to consider regulating that industry. But it's not, I mean, we've been talking about e-scooters. I see e-bikes. The rules of the road are applicable. So if a person younger than 16 utilizes it, she doesn't have the ability to stop it. You don't have an ordinance for it. See? So it just depends, when are you ready to do something, if ever. But again, I'm certainly not giving any type of recommendation at this time, and I don't have any statistics. But we talked about TxDOT, right? Kind of like, why does TxDOT do certain things? And unfortunately, the statistics are based on number of accidents or number of deaths. People, rules of the roads are made to TxDOT roads, state roadways. So a lot of times, those are how we measure when we start enforcing something.
It almost sounds, correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to ask you this. It almost sounds like we are talking about two things: authorization for a business to execute and a potential ordinance to safeguard like activities.
Yes. We're not regulating the business operation. That's a state activity. The business can operate with no involvement by the village. But the roadways and the safety and general welfare of those people on it also need to be protected.
So this agenda item almost kind of begets another item for discussion.
Yes.
Maybe not for this meeting, but next.
It did, and not to take away from the business operator. I didn't introduce it because I don't think it's necessary. But if you pose the question, I was prepared to answer. If you can, I researched these things, trying to get an understanding what other cities are doing. Some other cities do regulate it because they've had incidents.
That's all the questions I have.
Alderman Hurst.
No, that was a simple question.
Alderman McDonald.
Mr. Pointer, so if I was to rent an e-cycle, I have a 13-year-old son. As a father, if I want to rent that cycle and I pay for it, and my son jumps on it and scoots down the road, I'm responsible and liable based on that conversation. Am I saying that properly?
That's correct. There's a rental agreement that you must agree to that stipulates what your age is as the rider, and that is, use at your own risk. There's a liability statement in there.
Yes,
I provided that in an email. I could provide it to you again.
We see it here. We have it in our board packet, sir. I just want to ask that question out loud for
I can't
general
enforce it
communication.
because I'm not there.
Right.
Right, at the time that you're making the rental, but it is stated, and I have to just believe in people's integrity.
Right, and the only way you're going to pay for this is with a credit card. Am I saying
Correct.
that properly too?
You have to use some form of payment on the application in order to unlock a vehicle for utilization.
All right. My next question to you, sir, is based on how the board makes a decision on this going forward, are you planning to expand your business? Are you planning on growing? How are you planning on doing that? Is that an intention for you, sir?
We're not profitable today.
Yes.
I would anticipate modest to small growth.
Sure.
If we form more partnerships with local hotels and other partners, then I may purchase more scooters and bikes to put at those locations.
Understood.
We have a very small fleet today, as I stated in the document. We have 9 scooters and 5 e-bikes. It's not a whole big fleet.
Right on. All righty. Well, thank you for answering my question, sir. No further questions, Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Bell.
First of all, thank you for your $148.12. You really, hey, every little bit helps. Manny, could this be something that we don't necessarily do an extension or a probationary extension? We just say, we're going to do the extension for it to be annually renewed automatically, unless we need to visit based on an ordinance.
No, sir, the probation period was just to kind of get an idea, right? That you don't have an ordinance that actually requires a permit for it yet.
Right.
Like off-road stores. So I think that if you're interested in at least some type of regulation, then you start, with some of the most minor stuff, you don't ride on sidewalks, you don't do certain things. And if you need to escalate the requirements, then you have to for enforcement. But again, there's certainly, today there was no action other than if you're gonna give me direction. You don't have an ordinance to require a permitting process. So, but the opportunity is that they'll leave us in the evening with the understanding they can continue operating their business because you don't regulate private property or have an ordinance for the public roadway. Or not public roadway, the public right of ways. This regulates sidewalks or roadways, right? So anything within a public right of way could be, regulated.
But if we don't have an ordinance, then what are we actually approving?
You're not approving. I mean, you can't stop them from riding a scooter on the sidewalk.
So there really doesn't need to be any action.
No, there does not need to be any action until.
Other than a blessing, go in peace and have fun.
And keep submitting your taxes to us.
We will do so.
And again, Board of Aldermen, the only reason it's on the agenda, when I read the minutes, it said it was a 1-year probationary period. It is for you to make that determination. That's the only reason they're here is to give a report based on the 1 year.
Okay, the only thing I have to add to that is, I think I've seen these scooters in use, see people having a good time with it. It's kind of hard not to smile when you're riding, it's like being mad on a jet ski. How does that happen? The only thing I would caution you is just paying more attention to who's riding them on sidewalks. We are seeing a lot of that, and I do appreciate you moving them out of the public right away. And as I remember it, when we first talked about this last year, they were not going to be operated after dark. Is that?
It was 10 p.m.
10 p.m. So are they shut off at that time?
They're unrentable.
Okay. All right. Other than that, Chief, are there any? We don't have any reports of any bad anything with that. Okay. All right.
They do have lights and turn signals.
Yeah, they do.
And brakes.
I've ridden them. They're fun. Yeah, they're good stuff. Okay. That's all I got. Thank you very much. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Mayor Henry. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Appreciate you.
I will open this up to public comments. None? Okay. No action necessary on this. We can revisit the discussion about the ordinance at a later date. All right. The board doesn't have anything else. We'll move on to the next item. 6B, discussion and possible action on approving the ordinance number 2024-21. An ordinance adopting the rules of procedure, conduct, decorum, and governance for the Board of Aldermen of the Village of Salado, Texas, and extending such rules to the village's boards and commissions and providing findings of fact, effective date, repealer, severability clause, and proper notice and meeting. Mr. De La Rosa.
Okay, you've had a governance policy for some time now, and that was, I actually went to go look for it when we wanted to change the public comment periods from 3 minutes to 5 minutes. So it was not adopted by ordinance, and honestly, I didn't even know it existed until I found it in Board. So what this does is, I had the city attorney, he and I reviewed the rules of conduct, decorum, public speaking by elected officials with the media, those kind of things. So you'll see somewhere in there that there's the 5 minutes for public speakers, what's expected of the elected officials and what's expected of the public speakers. So this will be adopted by ordinance, which means an infraction of those. And we'll move on to the next ordinance, which is the Code of Ethics, how elected officials are handled. But this kind of sets a lot of that framework. So, but it's my recommendation that policies should be adopted by ordinance. That way everybody can see them on our being said, do you have any questions for me?
Alderman Graham.
I have no questions.
Alderman Hurst.
No questions.
Alderman McDonald.
No questions.
Mayor Pro Tem Bell.
None.
All right, I will open it up at this time for public comments. None? Okay.
You got one there.
Yep, come on up.
Simmons, 317 Salado Creek Place, Salado, Texas. While the timing of this ethics and decorum ordinance is certainly interesting, here we have been going along for years with the old ethics ordinance, and suddenly you have an ordinance that addresses decorum and comments to the board. Are you getting ready to make decrees for Salado that will cause citizens to lose their, in quote, patience, shout at you, become unruly, and use profanity? Is this not a clear indication that we can expect more bad decisions from you? Could the reason for this ethics ordinance suddenly be because you have been criticized for your rash, biased, disrespectful, and illegal actions on the I-35 West Side overlay? And you don't like that? The timing of this decorum proposal after criticism of your handling of the I-35 West Side overlay is incriminating. It almost makes one think you can't handle criticism or direct comment. And is it ethical for you to violate village ordinances and state statutes in doing that? Much less misappropriating $2.2 million? This certainly doesn't show strength or character or moral certainty. By this ordinance, are you telling citizens they cannot criticize individual aldermen or the village administrator, which they have a right to do? It's called the First Amendment. And frankly, if you can't stand the heat, you need to get out of the kitchen. And if you can't recognize that your actions could be completely wrong, the emperor isn't wearing any clothes. That is all.
Any other public comments? Mr. De La Rosa, when did we first start having these conversations about this? First of all, has there been an ethics ordinance for this board ever?
I have not found one.
Okay. When did these conversations start about putting this into effect? Shortly after I was elected as mayor.
Yes, sir. You and one other very specifically.
Mm-hmm. And for the members of the board who were on the board last year, was there not a discussion last year about putting this type of thing in place?
Yes, it was.
So there's no basis for Mr. Simmons' accusations. And to this point, I've extended public comments from 3 to 5 minutes and sat here and took anything that anybody had to throw at me. And I'll continue to do that. So,
Mr. Mayor, I'd also like to bring up the point that there's nothing that talks about any citizen's behavior in this document at all. It's all about regulating
us.
Elected officials.
Yeah. So,
I mean, really someone ought to take a look at things before they open their mouth. Whatever.
Mr. De La Rosa, do you have anything else you want to add to this? Once again, any more public comments?
Jim Boynton, 3565 FN 2843 Salado. This right here is what's been going on since I came to town to build any houses. There's a certain amount of people in this town that think if you do not run something by them or they disagree with you, you're open game. That's the reason we need to clear the boards. This isn't something that happened over the last year or so. This has been an ongoing problem for anybody that wants to try to conduct business in an honest, ethical way. I don't understand how dodging things and pushing things down the road is ethical or fair to our homeowners or property owners. We've used we've weaponized these things. I've been a victim of it. Y'all all know it. I've voiced it to you many times. There's tons of evidence of what has gone on. Now's the time they need to stop because there's no truth to it being morally. It could have been legally correct through the years what they were doing. It wasn't morally correct. It was not ever morally correct. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, there's no further discussion on this or questions. I will entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we adopt and approve ordinance number 2024-21 as written.
Motion made by Alderman Graham to approve and adopt as written.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Hurst. Any further discussion?
Question.
Question called by Alderman McDonald. All in favor of approving ordinance number 2024-21 as presented, indicate by say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Any abstentions? This being that passes 4-0. Item C, discussion and possible action on approving ordinance number 2024-22, an ordinance of the Board of Aldermen of the Village of Salado, Texas, adopting a code of ethics for the Village of Salado and providing findings of fact effective date, repealer, severability clause, and proper notice and meeting. Mr. De La Rosa.
Okay, Mayor and Alderman, you've got a 21-page code of ethics ordinance that not only regulates the activities of each one of you, how that ethics review will be handled, it regulates the activities of appointed officials and employees like myself or even our city attorneys. So, what we did is we actually looked at quite a few cities. Our law firm represents a lot of cities, and we took out exactly what would work here, and they're all over the board. In some places there are some that are very vague. This one actually sets out, should a complaint come in on the mayor pro tem would be the chair of that ethics review. If the mayor pro tem is not available, then it goes to the most senior elected official. So I mean, there is due process. So at the end of the day, the governing body is the final decision maker when it comes to you're elected by your constituents, and you are policing each other in that you're meeting these ethical requirements. It has the gift provisions. It's got other other portions that are very important. Okay. So these are outlined in the ordinance. They follow state statutes. I'll answer any questions, but it is my recommendation that you adopt a code of ethics.
Okay. Alderman Graham, you have any questions?
No questions.
Alderman McDonald? I'm sorry, Alderman Hurst?
No questions.
Alderman McDonald?
No, Mayor. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Bell?
Are there any items in here that would violate any of our First Amendment rights?
No, sir. No.
Okay.
Yeah, and let me clarify. We actually discussed about. I recall one of you five actually had a conversation about removal. There's an entire due process statutorily, but it certainly can start here and it can proceed somewhere else. But there is no violations of anybody's rights, whether First Amendment or just some other rights that you may have. So what we're trying to do is establish a due process for everyone.
But a removal is a pretty difficult.
Very difficult.
Because even if you decided, Mr. McDonald here, we wanted to off him or something,
but you can
then we wind up into some issues with quorums because we wouldn't be allowed to fill the position until the next election. I mean, which the timing of can be pretty hard.
But there are some elected officials around the state that that have bad behavior, do something so egregious that you start the process with an ethics review, make a determination, and then you send it to where it needs to go. Right. So I mean, it just sets that due process. That's all that is. It just holds you to a standard.
May I have a question from Mr. Del Rosa? After reading through all this and reviewing it, what this essentially does is it provides an ethical background in how we're supposed to conduct ourselves, amongst ourselves, and with our community in advance, versus hearsay, right? Am I saying that properly?
It sets the rules in black and white.
Yes. Are there any teeth in this document that you can foresee, that you're seeing?
No, the teeth is actually lies with you, with the governing body,
That's right.
with each other and the rest of us.
Thank you for answering my questions, Mr. Del Rosa.
Okay, any public comments on this item? All right, if there's nothing further, I will open the floor for a motion.
I'll make a motion, we accept ordinance 2422 as presented.
Motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Bell to approve ordinance 2024-22 as presented.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman McDonald. Any further discussion?
Question.
Question called by Alderman Graham. All in favor of approving ordinance number 2024-22 as presented, indicate by say yes.
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 Any opposed, say no. Any abstentions? This being that passes 4-0. Item D, discussion and possible action on approving ordinance number 2024-23, an ordinance of the Village of Salado, Texas, amending the existing zoning ordinance and providing for the following findings of fact: reservation of rights, a savings clause, severability, repealer, effective date, and proper notice and meeting. Mr. De La Rosa.
Okay, Mayor and Alderman, this is it sets up the composition of the Planning and Zoning Commission. What it does, rather than have them, the ordinance allows for staggered, and it mentions that. Positions were never staggered. What we've done is now, a 5-member commission will be appointed. There are 5 aldermen and 1 mayor generally when we don't have a vacant seat. Therefore, the mayor would not get an appointment. Each alderman would. You make a nomination, and the appointment is with the consent of the governing body. And then tonight was just just making some tweaks to the actual ordinance on that composition. And it comes what we should be looking for background and stuff.
Okay. Alderman Graham, you have any questions?
When were we taking a look at this? What was there a particular impetus to this, or?
No, it came up that you've got an alternate. Actually the ordinance has two alternates. So planning and zoning commissions are pretty statutory. But some, like home rule, many of those planning and zoning do have final decisions. Your planning and zoning commission is created and is only an advisory body. They can make any recommendation they like, you can either accept it or not. Okay, so none of that has changed, but it's a little bit more structured, and it does take out some of the vagueness when I read how these were appointed, where they serve, how they serve. We didn't change any of those. They can be removed at any time. It's pretty straightforward for general cities. They serve at will.
And do we have term limits?
The maximum of 2 terms, okay, 2 back to back, okay? So if I recall, the conversation I had with the city attorney was, I think that they should serve 2 terms, break away 1 term before they can come back another term.
Okay, so when I take a look here, it says each officer shall hold office for 1 year or until replaced by a simple majority vote of the full commission, the commission being the P&Z commission, correct?
Yes.
I'm taking a look at B8. And then I'm also taking a look here, there's failure to attend clauses.
Those are the officers.
That's the chairperson and the vice chairperson.
And vice chair. Okay. They vote, they should take a vote every year, and every year is a chair for that 1 year and the vice chair.
Okay, I guess really what I should have been looking at was 3. All appointments to the commission shall serve as a member of the commission for a term of 2 years, which shall run concurrently with the term of the alderman who appointed the commission member. Commission members may remain in their position as carryover members until their replacement has been appointed by the Board of Aldermen. Members may be reappointed for a total of up to 2 terms, so somebody could theoretically be on the board for 4 years, and then after the expiration of that second term, they would have to take a term off before having an opportunity to go back onto that board. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And would we take a look, I guess this is separate than us taking a look at what our current board is in terms, would our current board be grandfathered, or would this be effective with our current board? You see what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. Everybody has already served at least 1 to 2 years. Okay. Some are maybe a little over 2 years. I have the terms of all 4 plus the alternate.
Yeah.
Okay. So they can continue to serve. So what we will do is assign each one of those based on the terms that fits the category of the 5. Okay. Other than we don't have a fit, but we'll fit that category. So we'll have an idea when their terms are up. Okay. For example, some of you, somewhere like the 3 of you, this May, 2 are up next year, and then the vacancy. So we'll have this. So if somebody gets elected in May, and they get sworn in by mid-May, they may not have an idea of who they want on June 1. That's why it's a carryover until they can determine, and they stay in that position until they decide what they want. So it's a carryover. So, but it runs with the term. Yeah. So the term starts June 1 regardless, and ends at the end of May. But if they get appointed July, they are starting on that term that started on June 1.
So with this ordinance, does it start into effect or start into motion the assignment or the coupling of one alderman to one current planning and zoning commission?
Yeah, it starts, the ordinance will take effect when it's adopted.
So like my term's up in May.
May.
So logic, I'm thinking, would be that I would want to be paired with somebody that was, metaphorically speaking, long in the tooth or whatever, in their term. So both of our terms ended close to the same time, as opposed to somebody that, you know, Zach wouldn't want somebody that's on the way out. They'd probably want somebody with longevity. Is that the direction that we're heading with in terms of right setting this?
And it looks like I can fit them in those categories so to have this continuum. Okay? So again, you don't know the terms. I know the terms better because we pulled dates. We know when they came in. They didn't all come in May or June 1. They came in February and other parts of the year.
Yeah.
So, but they've all served it to a certain extent in some categories. So some of them are already may only have about a year left before their 4 years will be up. Okay. But again, this did not change from the first one. They could have always been removed by the majority of this. So what I did is, I made sure that I put simple majority as opposed to a super majority. It was silent on it. Just wasn't. So that takes away that vagueness.
Yeah. Right, thank you. That's all I have.
Alderman Hurst. Alderman McDonald.
Alderman Grant asked all my questions.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Bell. All right, I'll open it up to public comments. Ms. Turnbow.
Beth Turnbow, 349 College Hill Drive, Salado. Gentlemen, this proposed ordinance does more than change the way in which P&Z commissioners are assigned or nominated, if you will. This does much more than that. Excuse me, I'll go through that. I ask that you proceed, that you carefully consider whether to proceed with the vote on the proposed ordinance 2024-23. It actually amends section 2.2 of the current zoning ordinance. If all we're doing is changing how commissioners are appointed, then that particular ordinance can simply be amended, 2.2. This, though, also substantially changes the roles and responsibilities of the commission. I remind you once again that you don't have the authority to arbitrarily change a zoning ordinance with an amendment without having a public hearing and getting the recommendations from the P&Z committee. It's ludicrous to move the duties of the commission from section 2.2 of the zoning ordinance to the subdivision ordinance. It absolutely makes no sense. The subdivision ordinance governs how land is developed and divided. Why in the world would we move the P&Z Commission's role and responsibilities to a subdivision ordinance when we are responsible for zoning, all of zoning, including subdivision? The intent of the ordinance is obvious to me. It is gutting the P&Z Commission, and I will go through exactly how it does that. And more importantly is that you're going to be out of compliance with state law 2011 and 2012 of the Texas Code. I'm going to tell you what this proposed ordinance does. It guts, it no longer specifies the power and duties of the commission. It has completely removed that section. This means that commissioners will no longer review or make recommendations on the comp plan. That's been taken out. No longer make recommendations on zoning ordinance amendments. That's been taken out. No longer make recommendations on plats or subdivisions. That's been taken out. And have no role in establishing ETJs. That's been taken out. More importantly, the VOA, in doing this draft ordinance, they've eliminated the requirement for the procedure and process for zoning changes, which is what we've been up here talking to you guys about. We've got to follow state law, and state law requires a process for zoning changes. It's got to start with the commission. And there we draft up something, we have a public hearing, and we send it on to you with recommendations. Then you have a public hearing, and then you make your decision. This is not happening in any of these cases. It didn't happen with the WSO, the West Side Overlay Ordinance, and it's not happening with this one. Citizen participation in advisory boards, whether it's the P&Z or an economic development board, allow for an in-depth examination of issues and a broad range of ideas and expertise in public decision-making. In your recent actions, you're choosing a more dictatorial and adversarial approach to making policy, and we don't understand why. You should be promoting unity, not disunity. I think the citizens of Salado should be concerned about the heavy-handed way the BOA is dealing with the P&Z, as well as their apparent lack of transparency and accountability. There is no compelling reason to have this ordinance. We have an ordinance in place. It can be amended to have the process that Mr. Della Rosa has pointed out. And there's no problem in how he's recommending that the commissioners be appointed. I think we're all understand that, and we all respect your authority in making those decisions. But we don't have to have a change. We don't have to have a subdivision ordinance change to put the P&Z under a subdivision ordinance. I was a mediator for the Jefferson County court system in Colorado, in Denver, Colorado. So my personal approach in dealing with conflicts is to find solutions that have a win-win for both parties. I urge you to not see the commission as your enemy, but as a body that can help you make decisions that are in the best interest of our special village. Thank you.
Mayor, if I can bring your attention to section 2.2 B9. See what it is? I think that if you read that, the commission, the plans on the commission control that bylaw, so this can be in the already existing internal bylaw. So we talked about just in general, and I hear a lot about advisory bodies. No advisory body, no city department can adopt a policy that isn't adopted by the governing body. Mayor, you might recall a conversation we had about a week ago, and it was about a definition. And I said, let me have the city attorney, and it was a response to your look at one word. And here's, I think, what's something to get when you're looking at state law. Whether it's 211, 213, there's other governmental state statutes that grant you authority. It's not all in one place. So whether they're in conflict, and I think that's what you found out more, is that you're reading it here, but it's only in this context, that the authority also lies in this government code. And as a governing body, you have the authority to plan, to adopt policies, to plan. So I think that that's part of what we're looking to do. Right, is that it's not all going to be in one state statute. But that, commission certainly made draft bylaws that are submitted to the governing body for approval. So some of the justice part that it goes through the state administrator. These are, when you're using staff time, you're utilizing public resources, is with the direction of the governing body. So if it has bylaws, if they draft bylaws and you adopt them, that's kind of what we follow until those bylaws were amended with your approval. But some of it is also that if you go back to the government, you need to coordinate your agenda preparation and give me time to prepare that agenda. That doesn't mean that I can't do what I'm instructed to, but I need time to make sure that I get that agenda prepared, which is why it says the mayor, a single alderman, or myself can put something on the agenda, and we talk about preparation. It's the same thing here. It's Humboldt's bylaws that are presented, and if it's adopted by the governing body, then it's got a document they can work from. These things that are listed A through F are exhibit C will be part of those bylaws.
Those are, I'm reading them, and those are all the things that the speaker said were not in there. But in fact, they are.
Yeah. Now, we did the budget preparation. There was a request made for $75,000 or so to redo the comprehensive plan in 2025. It would be nice if you had some funding to outsource it. To go through again, let's do it in-house. You make that decision. You adopted the budget. You instructed me to deliver that number. And this is all this is when we begin the comprehensive plan instructed by the village administrator. Because I take my direction from you. So, any questions for me? Thank you.
And I'll add that this serves dual or multi purposes here. One, it eliminates a situation that we had last year when we were installing 2 new members to the Planning and Zoning Commission, where applications were hidden from the Board of Aldermen at that time, and they were handpicked by previous administration, previous leadership, and then later on we saw applications that came through that were dated prior to these other people that came to us, and we weren't given the full packet. So this eliminates that issue. We're going to debunk some of these conspiracy theories right quick. Has there been any discussion about removing anybody from the Planning and Zoning Commission?
No.
Okay. So that's not true. It's a conspiracy theory, and I'm not even going to entertain it. The next thing is, this needs to be done in order to, just because this is the way that things have always been done, doesn't make it right. This can't come as a surprise to anyone, because I said I was going to do it if I got elected mayor. The way of doing things, because we've always done it, is not an excuse anymore. We're not doing it anymore. We're going to put things, and we're going to memorialize it by ordinance, so there's some teeth to it, and we have some backing that we can enforce these type of things. So We just need to move past all this nonsense with the conspiracy theories, because none of it is true. There's been no discussion about removing anybody. And it's going to eliminate, like I said, each individual alderman. The mayor's out of this. They get their pick for who's going to be on the commission, and the board as overall will approve that. So that's nonsense. Anyway, any more public comments on this? We got Mr. Lassiter. You want to speak on this?
Jim, could you speak up? Could you speak up?
Sure.
Thank you, sorry for that. And Manny, I couldn't hear much of what you were saying, but I didn't want to interrupt you, but I think I got the gist of it. So, is this better? Yeah, thank you. A lot of what, well, let me just start by saying we took an oath to the village of Salado when we took this job. Certainly I remember doing that, and that our responsibility was to the entire village. And I wasn't ever designated to say one thing or another. I wasn't instructed to do one thing or another by the prior administration. And that's the way we carried our business. Nor have you instructed me at any point to do one thing or another, except through public action, if we've ever really talked about concepts or visions or anything else. But it would be nice to do that. And there's probably more common ground there than you think, but without open communication, you can't get there. Fair enough. So the Planning Commission at heart, whether they were the past regime and however they got in there, appears to have been questionable at the very least. I think their input has been honest and straightforward. I'm sorry that it didn't go as you probably know more than I do about the timing of all that, but I think they're good people. I think they tried to serve in the best interest of the entire village, not as one regime or another. And I think we continue to try and do that and do our best on that basis. I don't know whether you really want some of us off of the Planning Commission early. If you do, please let us know. I think that would be fair to at least consider that. But the intention is to do what's best for what we think in this entire community. And I can't take responsibility for prior commissions that I haven't been involved with 3.5 years ago, nor do I hold y'all responsible for things that happened prior to yours. System's certainly not perfect, but a democracy is based off of a lot of input from varying sources. And it's been a pretty good system in the United States of America. And I encourage you to respect and listen to people with differing views before you, as the authority for the Village of Salado, make your decisions. I think that's what simply we've been asking and are most frustrated about. We can talk about legality this way or that way, but that's what we're frustrated about. We would like that. I think it would be helpful. It would be far less confrontational, and I think it'd be very beneficial. I guess last but not least, the vision of Salado. What do we really want it to be? And that's what we're trying to work with and do. It's changing. There's no question change begets more change. But I'm not interested in blaming you. I'm not interested in blaming the Planning Commission. I just think we haven't had the opportunities that we deserve, and I think we have that input. And we are an advisory commission. Advisory. Some people evidently don't know the difference, but we don't really make the decisions for the city of Salado. We know that, and you know that. And for anyone to really say that the Planning Commission is sitting there thwarting what they're wanting to do is dishonest. Perhaps not intentionally, but it is dishonest. It's not true, let's just say that. And we aren't perfect anyway, so that's really all I have to say. I do have this, I'd like to, my letter, which I didn't really follow tonight. I think it has some things in it that are worth saying, but I'd rather you hear from my heart and from my mind than what's written in a letter personally, so that's why I wanted to say what I said. I will tell you though, so long as I'm on it, my commitment is to the entire village. And if we disagree, so be it, we disagree. But at least we've had the opportunity to have that discussion and go forward. Because we do know we're an advisory committee.
Mr. Simmons? Did you want to speak on this agenda item?
Simmons, 317 Salado Creek Place, Salado, Texas. Well, it certainly appears that there's a hidden agenda here. That you do not want input from anybody. You dismantled advisory board, and now it appears to me that you're limiting the planning and zoning commission. I think that's a mistake. I want to make it very clear that the Planning and Zoning Commission is set out by Texas state law, and that law says the commission shall recommend boundaries for the original zoning district and appropriate zoning regulations for each district. You have a west side overlay, you have other zoning districts, and they are entitled to make zoning restrictions and laws on those districts with your approval and make recommendations. And it also appears you're limiting the Planning and Zoning Commission to subdivision ordinances, etc. And they have greater authority than that. You've completely dismantled the Library of Expertise and various advisory boards and the P&Z, which has made Salado great. You have completely disregarded the expertise and goodwill of sophisticated experts on these boards to the detriment of residents of Salado. Your actions prove that you're not about ideas from others and getting to a best solution.
Okay, Mr. Del Rosa, let's talk about another myth, conspiracy theory, whatever we want to call it. When we decided to really kind of put it on pause, these advisory boards, we did that because we didn't have the money to do any projects. We had no money allocated for capital improvement projects, nothing towards the park, nothing towards any of those things. So I'm not one for meeting just to meet, and I think it ties up staff's time. So again, transparency. I don't know that I can be more transparent than I have been, and I get what the speakers have said and the commenters have said as far as seeking input from citizens. I've done that, and just because 10 people in this room decide that I've violated state law or this board has violated state law, there's 200 out there that disagree with you. So let's just there's no reason for pointing fingers. And Mr. Lassiter said that we need to kind of come together and work together. If they would just honestly just seek to understand why we're doing things instead of coming up with these theories, and I think that we would be much better off, and we could work better together than having this type of just back and forth. It's tiring, honestly. And as far as this ordinance goes, did our attorney not vet this? He approved it. He prepared it. So this is in accordance with state law. Okay, thank you. Ms. Hill, did you want to speak?
Katie Hill, 1221 Baines. I formerly served on the P&Z, actually with Alderman Graham, and I just wanted to say, if it's not against state code or statutes, if you can have an alternate, it's a good idea. At least it was. The P&Z oftentimes is dealing with plating and zoning and construction projects. These people come to the P&Z to get to you to get their projects done in a timely manner. And as you know, there has to be a quorum. And there were several times when having that alternate be able to fill in was essential to the timeliness of getting citizens' projects completed. So if it's allowed, I think it's a good idea to have an alternate. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Jim Boynton, 3565 FM 2843. As long as they want to stand by and say nothing unethical went by, I'll keep coming up here and speaking. Unethical things have happened for years. I'll give you a for instance. When I was building houses over here and trying to get stuff approved, I started in December. McCovey's Coffee bought that piece of property, got it all past the zoning committees in this town, and were operating by November. We weren't living in those houses a year later. Why? Because of all of this rigmarole that these people put you through. They don't show up to meetings. They think they have this individual power to keep you from developing something. I'm not developing anything. I'm building a house on a house lot. It's not only the former mayor and the former city manager. It goes back to 2009. It's in your public records. So to say that they haven't done it is not true. They've done it to me. They've done it to others. There's a house I showed up on Royal one day. There's a lawyer living in it. One of the girls that went to school with my stepson, she and her husband, Quarles Construction, built that house, and they held them up with planning and zoning, this fee and that fee and no sewer. It's a concerted effort by a handful of people in this town wanting to have their way or the highway for anybody coming in. Because if you look around, there's a lot of people that didn't abide by any rules and regulations, and their stuff is substandard and it's very readily seen around town. But they were streamlined. They'd get a building permit at the first of the month and be using it at the end. Don't tell me ever that it hasn't been corrupt. I'm not saying the people on it now are. I'm just telling you, up until this point, they've used it to stall people and cost them money. That's it.
Anybody else? Alderman McDonald, you want to add something?
Mr. De La Rosa.
Yes, sir.
Sir, in the event that the P&Z, to Ms. Hill's point, in the event the P&Z does not have a quorum and a developer or a citizen would like to approach for a request, do they have a route directly to the board if the P&Z is not adequate at the time to present?
No, sir, but you can schedule another planning zoning, right? It's almost the thing you have. So you actually have public hearings.
Yep.
You have in the newspaper, those things kind of station problems. To get this first, Mayor, you and I discussed about the removal, and I think I did make that claim. And the section is failure to attend these, it's in, 2.2B, number 6.
Yep.
Failure to attend 3 consecutive scheduled meetings shall be deemed as neglect and cause for removal from office unless these absences are due to unusual circumstances beyond the member's control and are excused by simple majority vote of the commission.
Right.
So there is, I think that I put that there once. And that cost me some control. I didn't change that to the Board of Aldermen. But if I see that they're not taking action and removing members that are not attending meetings, I'm going to bring it to your attention that you've got somebody not attending meetings, and at that point, you can remove the most cost.
Okay.
Right? So if we want to remedy this, it's a 5-member commission. You need 3. There's very few, this is not like the board definitely needs sometimes to keep a majority. Okay? So, I think that we took that into consideration. I know the narrative specifically brought it up. I love this that, but that's why I made it very simple with a simple majority. But we did have these So I get posed a lot of questions about individuals of it, right? So, but we did, you know, there were some comments that we should have all 16 nods. I said we had two, we've only had one, filled, at least in what I can see in the record. And again, sometimes, if you don't really have protocols on how it is, do they fit in, do they, you know, when, or did they just attend meetings and maybe never get to go to anything, right? Because all five are very good stewards of attending, the five members of the commission are good stewards of attending, and there's no need for an alternate, right? They just get to attend and not get to do anything, right? I just think that that's a good thing.
Thank you, Mr. De La Rosa, for clarifying that.
And they have the ability to police themselves. If they have a member on their commission that has been absent for 3 consecutive meetings, they have the ability to say,
That's
hey.
why it's written there. Yes, sir.
Did you have something?
Yeah, Manny, at the beginning of this ordinance, it says, whereas the board seeks to amend the village's zoning ordinance. But then we come down and says this ordinance is adopted as the subdivision ordinance. Why are we doing that?
I lost it.
So the second whereas, it states that we're amending the zoning ordinance. But then, before section 1, it says this ordinance is hereby adopted as the subdivision ordinance. Why are we?
And I think that's an error. It's adopted. If you look at the caption, it's adopted this zoning ordinance. So that
okay.
What needs to be struck?
It's actually this ordinance hereby adopted. It's right. It's under the bold now, therefore be ordained. Whatever the subdivision is.
Okay. Would there be a reason why we couldn't postpone this and have a public hearing? I know we've had people talk to it, but issuing it as a public hearing, allowing input to come in, would that be?
No, that's correct.
Okay.
Any further public comments? No. So, we want to table this, Manny, until I would be glad to hold public hear what, contrary to popular belief, I do want to hear what people have to say. So,
And would there be any benefit of, I don't know, maybe you've already done this meeting, with correct commission, and kind of lining this up, make sure we're all on the same page. Those are my thoughts. I'm one person.
I agree with that. I think that's a good approach.
So take no action tonight, and we can schedule a public hearing for, I guess, whatever the next meeting is.
Let's make it for the second meeting in December. My
Okay.
schedule is usually 2 weeks out.
Yeah. Okay.
Right, so.
While also going through, like Rodney was talking about, a walkthrough with the current
And I
planning
will
and zoning commission, make sure
make
that
it available.
everybody understands what's up.
You know, I don't care how long it takes. I just want it done
again
in a fluid manner.
If it needs to wait till after the meeting,
And that's my point, yeah.
Because to the point of the alternate, I mean, I was an alternate, I think, the first year that I was on the P&Z when they were active. And there were probably 4 meetings that I came in on where I had decision-making authority. And so when somebody was gone and they needed me to come in, I was basically a relief pitcher, and I came in and I voted according to what was in front of me, and that's the way it went. It was useful, it worked fine, and then I later transitioned by appointment of the board into a sitting seat, but you know, for what it's worth.
Okay.
There is merit there. It's designed like that.
So can we set it off for January?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. If we even, whatever, however it falls into your timeline. I mean, we're in no hurry to do any of this. This is not, we're not looking to remove anybody from the board. So we're just trying to put some rules in place and.
A lot of these are housekeeping.
Yeah.
I've got a long detail. Right?
I know.
And in fairness to me, if anybody can meet with me, they go to a meeting, talk to me about facts, not emotion. No. Okay, fairness, right? You know how I move forward. I'll answer the question. But I'm not going to debate it.
Okay, so no action, and we'll move forward to a public hearing at a later date. Item E, discussion and possible action on approving ordinance number 2024-24, an ordinance of the Village of Salado, Texas to establish child safety zones and distance restrictions for registered sex offenders, and including the following findings of fact, effective date, repealer, severability clause, and proper notice and meeting. Mr. Del Rosa.
Okay, this actually started, there was a request, citizen, I assume it's a citizen or citizen within the school district, sent an email to the school superintendent and I believe every one of you. So, based on that, I didn't get it. It was reported to me by some of you, then reported to me by the superintendent. Then I got a follow-up email by the school district district police chief. Should encouraging that the village consider this child safety zone. So, we reviewed it, had a conversation with the chief, had a conversation with the city attorney first. So he explained what the statutory requirements were, and then the child safety zone. And then I've had at least one elected official that had the city attorney give a response as to why we were doing this. So if we move forward with this adoption, I'd like for it to be conditional. So the child safety zones that are being proposed right now would be the schools. So they're clustered right along Williams Road, and we have on our zoning map as public facilities, which is the school. You'll see a green color on it. You'll see the Thomas Arnold. Then we would also include Hay Park, Serena Park, the private park by the Gulf, Sherrill Park, I think that's right, Sherrill Park. And then I mentioned Acton because I get communications from that school, right? That's a private school. Again, I don't know all of the daycares. The chief can certainly answer that. The chief has an idea of what other areas would qualify within school education and so forth. You can also do arcades and stuff like that, make a listing, right? But this is what's important. I didn't want to spend a lot of time on creating a map, and I've provided Chief Fields the information to the where it says under section 2 adoption, C measurements, semicolon map, and more specifically number 2, a map depicting the child safety zones within the village shall be created by the village and maintained by the village police department. The village shall review the map annually for changes. The map shall be available to the public at the village police department and shall be posted on the village website. Okay? So if you do want to do this and move forward, my recommendation is that you approve it conditionally, subject to the map being created. We'll send it out, just to see what it looks like, and then the mayor executes the ordinance and we post it what we need to see kind of this on the website. But if not, I got to create this map. I got to pay MRB to create it, right? So without getting too far ahead, you can table it, right? But if it's something that you want to move immediately, and Chief, he tells me about the number of sex offenders in town, what he does at home, how we monitor, and those those types of conversations. Okay, so this ordinance does not regulate a sex offender that may live next door to you. Okay, this is an ordinance that state law allows municipalities to adopt if you want to create these safe zones, and it says up to 1,000 feet. We wrote it up as 1,000 feet. So the chief and I had a conversation a couple of days ago about very specifically where that 1,000 foot starts. It starts at the property line. So we would draw this bubble around the facility starting at the property line. not the building, not the front door of the school, which is supposed to find up the back. So, any questions on that?
Let me add one thing real quick. Just commending Chief Fields. Manny mentioned what he did during Halloween night. For those that aren't aware, while they were passing out candy for a while on Main Street, and then Chief Fields went around and to the locations of registered sex offenders, made sure that their porch lights were off, there was no candy set out front, and that there was no luring any children over there to go and get candy from them. He took the time to do that. We didn't give him any direction to do it. He was just being proactive, and I think I commend you, Chief. I appreciate you doing that. I think it's our community's better for that. Alderman Graham.
I'm going to say no. No question.
Alderman Hurst.
Okay.
Alderman McDonald.
Mr. De La Rosa. I would be, to the general term, I would be interested in knowing if this affects anybody who may be one of those registered offenders, who may live within that 1,000-foot bubble, that perimeter line, just by topography of housing in our community. I would need to know that. I would like to ask you how long would it take for us to generally, one, for Chief to validate those locations where children congregate, as we discussed, and then two, would it be possible for us to have an actual map in place before we potentially made this decision?
You can, if it looks like it. The instruction.
Right.
So we did discuss about the if somebody only lives within that zone of symbolic, they, because they're already there, it cannot be supposed to be moved. Okay. Okay. So in other words, you can't make it different.
No.
Now, and I thought about, well, how about if we did that? Well, when the release comes up, they can't. What if it's a family member? And it's, property. So in other words, we're just creating more work for us.
Right.
We know where they're at. We know what the zone will be. We just have to monitor it, and anybody new that comes into to register within the municipality has to make comply with that. So again, this is a conversation that Chief and I've already had.
Well, then, thank you for answering my questions, Mr. Ellis. Thanks, Chief.
Mayor Pro Tem Bell. Okay. I'll open it up to public comments. Okay. All right. If there are no public comments, no further questions, I will entertain a motion.
I'd like to move to table this item until we have the maps and kind of know what we got.
Motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Bell to table this agenda item until the maps are completed.
No, second that.
Seconded by Alderman Graham. Any further discussion?
Question.
Question called by Alderman McDonald. All in favor of tabling pending the completion of the maps, say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Any abstentions? As being that passes 4-0. Next item on the agenda is adjournment. A motion?
Move to adjourn.
So moved. 8:33.